Well, Happy New Year, everybody. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about 5 lessons that I learned in 2024 regarding foster care and adoption that I want to share with you all. And I would love to hear your comments below about what you've learned through your adoption and or foster care journey in 2024. And as always, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So these 5 lessons are not in any particular order, okay? But the first one I want to talk about that I learned in 2024 was how important it is for you to discover the most effective way for you to advocate for vulnerable children, whether that's becoming a foster parent, whether that's volunteering, whether that's just helping foster parents, whether that's actually adopting, being a CASA, all those different ways that you can actually be a part of advocating and taking care of vulnerable children. And the reason why I say that is because I have been in so many different roles when it comes to advocating for foster children. So I first started my journey in advocating for foster kids by becoming a guardian ad litem in juvenile court here in my city. Okay, so I did that for about 3 years. And so what I did there was that the court would appoint me to be the attorney for the child. That's what we call a guardian ad litem. So my job was to represent the child and let the court know what would be best for this child in this situation. Okay, so I did that for about 3 years. So as you guys know, my husband and I have had a heart for adoption for a long time. And we finally decided that we were going to do foster to adopt. And so I had a heart for fostering, he had a heart for adoption. We both had a heart for vulnerable children. So we decided that foster to adopt would be the best route. So we signed up with a foster care agency. We took in 2 siblings who were, we were an adoptive placement. And what that means is that the children had already been in foster care for 4 years, and the department was looking for an adoptive home because they were planning on terminating the parental rights of the mom and the dad. And so by the time when they came to us, it was for the purpose of adoption. So that's what I mean by foster to adopt. That's what we told our agency we wanted, were children who were, right around there. Like TPR was actually something that they were going to be doing. Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, our adoptive placement, they ended up actually going back to their dad. And so that's a whole long story that I'm not going to go into. But through that process, what that really taught me was how important it is for me and for you to really know where your gifts are best used when it comes to advocating for foster kids. So one of the things that I learned about myself in 2024 was actually that being a foster parent was not the best way that I could help vulnerable children. And so I actually just recently started advocating for kids in foster care again as a guardian ad litem. I actually started in December, so it's only been a couple of weeks, and I am loving it. It's like my spirit just came alive. And so what I learned in 2024 is that when you have a heart for vulnerable children, I know many of you do, and you've thought about fostering, maybe you have done kinship fostering, maybe, you've thought about adoption, but you're not really sure. It's really important for you to know which one is best suited for you that you can really thrive in. Because what you don't want to do is take up a role just because you feel bad, like I should be doing something, and then end up failing at it simply because maybe you didn't have the skills for it, or it just wasn't a place where you're thriving, like you really enjoy it. And what I've found is that where I really thrive in advocating for vulnerable children is being a guardian ad litem. Now, my husband and I have renewed our home study license for fostering. And so we're actually looking to foster again in 2025, but we're going to start it very slow. We've really narrowed down our requirements and kind of all of those things so that our family can really thrive. And so I'll keep you guys up to date on that. But lesson number 1, well, the first lesson that I want to share with you that I learned in 2024 is how important it is for you to really know where you thrive the most and how you can more effectively advocate for vulnerable children. The second lesson that I learned in 2024 is that foster to adopt is not a reliable path to adoption. In a lot of my videos, as if you guys have watched them, you've seen that I've been a huge advocate for foster to adoption and also adopting children whose parents' rights have already been terminated. That's foster care adoption. But I've also talked a lot in my videos about foster to adopt. Foster to adopt is when you do what I mentioned earlier that my husband and I did. This is when you get your license to become a foster parent, but you tell the agency, we want children who are already, they've already been in the system long enough, and either the department has already filed for TPR, or they're on the verge to, and so you really are wanting to be an adoptive placement. And so, but what I found is that that's actually not the most reliable way to adopt. So if you want to do something like that, what my husband and I did, it's better to go into it with the heart of just fostering. We went into it with the heart of adoption. We wanted to adopt a child who was in foster care, but we didn't want to do foster care adoption. We really like that middle spot. But what I found is that middle spot is so unreliable that if adoption is really on your heart, then just do straight adoption. Okay, don't start with fostering and then kind of hope that you'll get to adoption. Just adopt. So that would mean if you want to adopt, you want to do foster care adoption, or you want to do international adoption, or you want to do newborn adoption, but you don't want to do like the foster to adopt, because that's just very unreliable. So that's a lesson I learned, and I'll probably talk about that more in some videos later this year and kind of break down all of that. But that's one of the lessons that I learned this year. The third lesson that I learned this year regarding fostering and adoption is that if your community that you have around you right now, your friends and family, are not going to be supportive when you decide to foster or adopt, you need to find a different community. You may have to find an online community. And so you want to be sure, like for us, for example, we had, family and friends who at first were really excited for us, but then when we actually had the kids in our home and needed help, there were really only like one or two family members who really actually walked through the journey with us and were consistent in actually supporting us. Our church family, they knew we were fostering, but they didn't really offer support. There really wasn't anything at my church community, unfortunately, that provided support for foster parents. And so we ended up really relying on these two family members for an entire year, which can be really taxing on friends and family, who are just trying to be there for your support. So one of the lessons I learned is that if your community, family and friends, even though they were supporting you doing that, they're like, yeah, we're with you, but you need the physical help. Like, can you please, do respite care for the foster kids so that we can go on a date? Could you provide meals for us? Like, that's the kind of support that you need when you start fostering, not just the verbal, we're here with you, but then you don't see them at all the entire time you're fostering. And so one of the lessons I learned was, and I wish I would have done better at this, was to find a community, make the effort to find a community where I could go to support groups. I learned later on that there were actually like small groups of foster parents from different churches that were meeting regularly that I didn't know about. And I would have joined if I had known about that. So I think that would have helped me a lot, probably to stay more hopeful during a foster to adopt process that did not work out, and to see the situation differently. Okay, so that's the third lesson that I learned. The fourth lesson that I learned in 2024 is the power of foster care support groups. So our foster care agency had foster parent support groups, and I believe they met once a month. And so I made the mistake of not participating in that because I was I had so much that I was doing. We had 5 kids in our home, and our foster kids at the time were 2 siblings, and they were a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old who were both still in diapers, basically. So it was just a lot of physical labor, like a lot of work. And so by the time the monthly foster parent support group would come around, I didn't want to go. I'm like, I don't want to get in my car, drive all the way here to talk about these things. I'm so tired. I just want to I just want to go to sleep. But looking back, that probably was what I needed the most. Just being able to be around other foster parents who maybe were going through something similar, where I could be encouraged in kind of where I was at, or places where areas where I thought I was failing at as a foster mom, or I just couldn't figure out how to do this thing or that thing or whatever. Being able to hear from others who are going through the same situation would have helped a lot, actually. And I think that, again, would have also helped me to see the situation differently, maybe be more positive through the whole situation, and maybe not for the situation to be as devastating as it was, if I just had that support group around me. So that's the fourth lesson I learned. You make sure that you be a part of your foster parent support group as often as you can so that you are getting encouragement. Number 5 lesson that I learned is that it is okay for things not to go the way that you originally thought. So again, I've already told you guys a story. We got these foster kids as adoptive placements. We were supposed to adopt them, and then everything changed, and then they went home to their dad. And so we watched this movie, which I'll do a review on because it's so amazing. I'm forgetting the first part of the title, but it's the story of Possum Trot. It was a story of a small town. I believe it was in Illinois, and I think the town was called Possum Trot. And it was a church family who decided to start fostering children. The pastor's wife, just her heart broke for kids who were being abused and neglected, and she kind of started the whole thing. So they took in the first 3 siblings, and then the rest of the congregation followed suit. And before you knew it, the entire community started fostering, and that entire city, they took all the kids out of the foster care system. And so it was such a beautiful movie. But one of the things that I learned through that movie that I wish I would have learned when we were fostering was that it's okay for you not to be okay sometimes. Because when I was going through my foster care journey, I wanted to be like the healthy, always being able to pour into my foster kids at all times when they needed me. You know, like I needed to be level-headed. I don't want to re-injure them. And so I was constantly like, I need to be in my best, I don't know, like just be the best that I can be to these kids. I don't want to further injure them. But that was really emotionally taxing because you can only be that way for so long. You know, sometimes you're just so frustrated that you're yelling, and then you just need to go put yourself on timeout and take a nap, or you just need to take a drive and just hear quiet. But I didn't allow myself to have those moments of just being human. And I would just kick myself if I yelled or if I had, you know, a moment of like, why did you do that? Don't do that, you know? And so that when I watched that movie, it brought a lot of healing to my heart. And I would actually encourage all of you guys to watch this movie. You can watch it. I believe it's Angel Studios. It's an app like Netflix that you can purchase. And they have the movie was made by Angel Studios, and so now it's only streaming on their platform. But I highly recommend for everybody to watch this movie because it's so powerful. So anyway, but I learned that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to go through hard times when you're fostering, and that's actually normal. So one of the things that I learned there was that it's okay for things not to work out. It's okay for things to go not as you expected, and you know, like you don't have to blame yourself or, you know, just kind of let the weight of all of that be on your shoulders, which is a mistake that I made through my foster care journey. And so that's the 5th lesson I learned. Okay, it's okay for the journey to be harder than you thought. It's okay for the journey to be more difficult than you thought. We are just here to be a safe place for these kids. It's okay to make mistakes along the way, especially when your heart is pure. Your motive is really to help these kids, and you make mistakes along the way, and you apologize and you make it right. And that's really the best that you can do. So those are the 5 lessons that I learned about foster care and adoption in 2024. But I would love to hear from all of you because I know some of you are on a journey to foster eventually. You've had it hard for it, but maybe you just haven't started the process yet. Some of you have already started adoption. Some of you are in the process of starting adoption. I want to hear from you. What did you learn in 2024 about foster care and adoption? And how are you going to use those lessons in 2024 to make you a better person? And to make you more empathetic to vulnerable children. Okay, let me know in the comments below. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.